People stuck in traffic, so if you could just wait a couple minutes. Councilmember Morel wants us to wait on him, and I'd like to have him participate. Thank you. I think if you're going to do a chant, just one quick update. I'm ready to start council with some other matters, and then we'll get to Councilmember Morales stuff. I just don't want to delay everybody much longer.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, we're good. You want me to start?
Go ahead. You can.
Okay, we're gonna start. Angela, come on up. So last meeting, we were here. There's really two big issues we need to talk about. One is there were a couple appraisals that there was dispute over. We've got the law department here this time around that can kind of go over, what's happening with that. And then the other issue we need to talk about is the rental assistance that I'm going to wait for Councilmember Morel to discuss a little further with you all. So I don't know if you have any particular comments on the appraisal. Ms. Egana, you're going to take those? Okay.
Good evening. We have serious outcomes for today. And we want to take a few minutes at the start of this Garden Plaza Focus Task Force meeting to share a few important points, especially for people who are attending for the very first time or needing clarity. When resources get allocated for a community, this is very, very important, especially because we know that it did not happen without a hell of a fight from our community and those who stood in solidarity with us. In our case, we fought to secure $35 million, and these resources are critical and necessary to move this process forward, to impact in a way that improves our quality of life. As the city of New Orleans desires to move forward with its plan for future land use, we, as residents of Garden Plaza, also want to move this process forward so that we can go on with our lives. We still live to this day on top of the hazardous waste landfill, which sits in the second highest cancer-causing area in the entire state of Louisiana. And our goal is simple: for this to be resolved so we can move into healthy homes of our choice. We refuse to be positioned to take on unnecessary mental, emotional, or physical burdens. The $35 million has already been allocated and approved through an official city ordinance 10 months ago in June of 2022. That ordinance is law. Yet, it has not yet been distributed, and the time is now. As the residents of Garden Plaza, we have remained vigilant about our demand and our needs. Our purpose behind the demand and the necessary steps during the distribution process to ensure we can actually move into healthy homes of our choice. We have no interest in engaging in some smoke and mirror debate today about the law. It was the law when you put our property on this toxic land. It was the law when you allowed us to be here for 42 years. It was the law when you pocketed the money and you didn't clean the land. It was the law. We have met every expectation of the law and then some. We are not interested in the politics of the city of New Orleans. Deceptive excuses as reasons for not moving forward on exactly what has been discussed over and over and over and over again. And just to bring it forward, it was J.P. Morrell said it started when he was in high school. He went away to college, he got a degree, he went to law school, and now he's the councilman, and we still here. That's how long it's been. We were told by the city of New Orleans that it was the law for us to have a qualified Louisiana licensed appraiser in order to move this process forward. And after sounding the alarm about the evidence of devaluation and discriminatory practices, we selected our own appraiser for our community, who had a 75-day window to complete work that started on February 6th with a deadline of April 23rd. The appraisals were submitted on March 15th. And I say it again, the appraisals, they were submitted on March 15th. And today is April 10th. As a community, we have met every single legal and logistical expectation required of us. And at this point, we demand our offer letters, and they should be at an amount not lower than our stated appraisals at the highest amount. We have no time or tolerance for your lame excuses. Today, regarding this, we hold the entire city of New Orleans responsible. Whether you're old or new, if you're working for the city of New Orleans, we hold you responsible. And we demand this process no longer be stalled. You all can move this process forward today. And this is what we came for. We didn't come for another date, for another task force meeting. We didn't come for another delay. We came for it to happen today. This distribution process is as much important as the allocation process. These offer letters are not donations, nor are they gifts that are able to be treated like alms tossed off the side of a Mardi Gras float. They are to be made based on the very expectation that you all required it. You set the standards, and the standards have been met. The appraisals that were mandated by you, they were mandated. So now you have them. You have them by a qualified appraiser. You have had them for 4 weeks now, 27 days to be exact. It's time to stop the delays and stop the unnecessary sufferings and premature deaths of our community. We have not even gotten to the point of experiencing real material progress yet. Malcolm X said, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and you pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. And if you pull it all the way out, that's still no progress. The progress, CEO Montano, the progress, J.P. Morrell, the progress, Helena Moreno, the progress, Denisha Turner, the progress, Chair Garner, the progress, Joe Threat, and the city of New Orleans is when the healing, it begins. That's when it happens, when the healing begins. It's when the wound that you all when it is the wound that you all, the city of New Orleans, that you inflicted. It is when that blow was made. It's only then, when you make the right decision, when you do the right thing, that the healing will begin. See, you were in high school, but I was 8 years old. So I know what it is to go through my years of high school and then college and grad school and leave away from here and come back to the very same thing with the same people, the city of New Orleans. Whether you were here then, you're here now. You may not have been responsible for it then, but you are responsible for it now. Until the allocated resources are accessible in the ways they need to be to meet the needs of our community, to lift up and change the actual conditions of the lives of our community, the fight, it continues. So the only thing that we want to discuss right now and need is a no cheat. The people offer letters. That is what we want to hear about right now. That is what we came here for. I offer letters based on the only legal requirement that we needed to meet, and that was the appraisal. The 35 million that we fought for is already in place. So it's time to move this forward. And we mean now.
All right, let's start with the first item. We're going to talk about the appraisals. Who from the law department wants to come up and talk about that, or Cher Gardner, either one?
You ready? Is this on?
Yes, it's on. Introduce yourself and
Hi,
give us the update on
Yes,
where
sir.
we are with the offer letters, please.
Deborah Fishman of the Cher Gardner Law Firm. Try this one.
Just lean in a little closer to the mic. Yep, there you go.
Let me know, is this better? I
Yes,
think
thank
so.
you.
I hear the echo. We received this afternoon 4 revised appraisals from Christopher Baker at ARC. And we do not know if he's going to be sending additional appraisals. But before I left to come over here, because we received them sometime early this afternoon, I asked that they be mailed to the residents of those 4 properties. I have the addresses if you all need them. 80 Gordon Plaza Drive, 59 Gordon Plaza Drive, 9 Gordon Plaza, and 2876 Abundant Street. So those appraisals went up in value anywhere between 10,000 and I believe one was maybe 25,000. I have it written down, but we don't know if any more to come, but those I have to look at the letters when I get back to the office before they get mailed, but they're ready to go out once I look at them. So that's where we are with ARC's appraisals. And I'd like some clarification if they're going to be additional revised appraisals.
Did you ask him?
Well, no, because when we tried to first of all, we just received them this afternoon. But when we tried to discuss Mr. Baker's appraisals with him, it was late in the afternoon, a week or so ago, and he was at lunch and he didn't call me back, but instead I received an email from his attorney, Mr. Walker.
Come on up, Mr. Walker.
So we've been unable to discuss really anything with Mr. Baker.
Mr. Mr. Walker, you represent Mr. Baker. We have met you
Yes, ma'am.
before.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, if you could explain to us, are there going to be any other revisions to any of the appraisals? What can we expect from your client?
As I stated last week, based upon input from the property owners, we thought that 4 would go up. We said that to the residents and to you last week. Those were the 4. Since my email to Sheer Garner and city attorney, which I copied y'all on, they've not reached out to my client or myself to discuss anything further. We were fairly, straightforward in our opinions, but we've been met with silence on several fronts. So we've not been contacted to discuss anything, but we remain as responsive as we can.
Well, maybe you could
at this-
ask your client, our mutual client, to give me a call so we can discuss it.
We
Because he never
we
called
did
me back.
request that we got it done in writing. A request to you was that any requests be done in writing so that there would be a record of it. So there wouldn't be any confusion going forward on what was said, what was answered. It would simply be simpler. If there was an email for request and information and a response in writing.
Yeah, you know what, Ms. Fishman, I'm going to agree with Mr. Walker, just based on kind of the lack of trust that seems to be kind of around some of these processes. I think that things in writing would be.
Well, we
a lot
respectfully
simpler.
disagree, Ms. Moreno, because typically when an attorney retains an expert, and we have retained Mr. Baker of ARC, there's an interactive process between counsel and the expert where you can pick up the phone and you can communicate. Instead, we get interference from Mr. Walker, which stifles the process. We would like to handle this the way lawyers typically handle communications with their experts, which is pick up the phone, ask them questions, talk to them. We reached out to Mr. Baker to contact us. When he didn't, then I called him. I realized he was engaged. Couldn't respond. And I said to please return my call. He didn't. Instead, we start this email traffic between myself and Mr. Walker, which is not particularly productive.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't have these meetings or have these phone calls. I'm just saying that just so that everyone understands the processes and where we're at, I do think it's important to potentially memorialize these things in writing so that everyone's clear on where everybody stands.
And to be clear,
Councilwoman Morrell?
the city is the client. If the city tells you to communicate in writing, and as the attorney, what are you going to do?
I'm sorry.
If the city of Donisha, why don't you come up here,
If the
Ms. Turner?
city
Come on up here. I think that the issue is this. I appreciate you would prefer to speak to Mr.
Baker.
Baker,
Baker.
but as your client, if the city instructs you, we would prefer you communicate in writing. Do you have the discretion to not communicate in writing?
If the city attorney's office to whom we report instructs us to do that, we will do that. But typically, it's just, please call me. I have questions. And communications between counsel and an expert are privileged communications. And we would like to keep our discussions privileged.
Okay, let's get to the offer letters because that's really what we're all here for. So it doesn't appear, according to Mr. Walker, that there's going to be any additional changes to appraisals. So are you prepared to send out the offer letters for the appraisal number listed in every single one of the appraisals?
We have not been instructed by the city attorney's office to send those letters because.
Hang on,
I'll
let me
speak
listen to
their
her answer.
Because
You can't hear? Lean in a
try,
little
is
bit
this
more.
better?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Okay. There is a delta between the appraisals of, some of the appraisals, not all, of Mr. Baker's versus Mr. Thorns's. We have been instructed to send letters, and we received these instructions right before the holidays, to send letters where there was, I have to get my notes, bear with me.
She's looking at her notes. She's reading. Hang on.
I believe where there was less than,
Pull the mic up.
where there was a less than $20,000 gap between Mr. Thorns's appraisal and Mr. Baker's, to go ahead and send those offer letters out. So they will go out hopefully tomorrow or I mean, they haven't been sent. There was a holiday Friday.
And that's what you were instructed to do by the city attorney.
Yes.
Denisha, why are we not sending all of them out? I mean, regardless of this delta, it's Mr. Baker who, at the end of the day, we're relying on his expertise.
Okay, I'm pretty sure what the directive was from my office was to send out offer letters on everything that we're certain that there will be no challenge on. So I don't know the number. I don't have the spreadsheet. I didn't look at it right before coming here, but we certainly did say, go ahead and send that out. There's absolutely no dispute about that. But I do know that we have a memo that has been referenced regarding the other number. And again, I don't think it was a lot of them, but I think it was just a few of them.
I guess it was a quick follow-up. So we've had communication through his attorney with Mr. Baker, and he was able to provide direct information as to why there were a couple that had a great deviation. And he gave specificity as far as the improvements to the property and the like as to why the appraisal was higher. We know from these meetings that many of Mr. Thorne's appraisals were cursory appraisals. He was not invited into the home. He was not able to do a full appraisal. So logic would state that there is a rationale between the delta because Mr. Baker was able to do a more thorough appraisal. I do understand that there might have been a separation of the ones where, from the opinion of the city attorney's office, these we can send out. We don't feel like there's a question, but I guess where we are a bit concerned is that there doesn't seem to be an urgency to talk to Mr. Baker about the ones where there is a differential. And to be very clear, like I said, if you look at these meetings, you look at this communication we're having today, this is why we want communication in writing. And I'll completely dispute many of your positions as another attorney that communication with your expert is not privileged. And it's a special privilege if it's verbally versus written or the like. And I've spoken to Ms. Turner, if we determine we want the communication in writing, the attorney, who is our hired attorney, does not have the discretion to not have communication in writing. Am I correct, Ms. Turner?
And that's fine, right? If we want communications to be in writing, they can be in writing.
Thank
I
you.
would think that what would be most beneficial is if we could actually have a conversation with Mr. Baker and definitely confirm everything that was said in writing. I believe at the meeting, the last scheduled meeting, you asked for an analysis. And that is definitely what needs to be done. So I believe Baker sent an analysis on one. I'm not sure if he sent an analysis on the others, but we are in agreement with you, Councilman Morrell, that analysis needs to be done.
Right. And so I guess the question becomes, 'cause I understand that there was this line you used where the amounts could be in dispute. I guess the question is dispute from whom? Who would dispute the amounts? If we've determined that there are two appraisals and a second appraisal is just as warranted and more thorough and has the proper licensure and has all the information to back up his appraisal, who's going to oppose the appraisal other than ourselves?
And I hear what you're saying. I just can't speak knowledgeable about that I did not read both of those. So I want to take the time with Sheer, like you recommended, to do that analysis. I don't believe that analysis has been done yet. I believe we received a report, but our outside counsel will have to give you more details about that. I believe we received a report for one of the properties. So Deborah, you would have to tell us
Let me
if
ask
we
you a
received
question.
reports on the other.
Let me ask a question to the lawyers, and I'll ask them to the ones at the table, at either one of the tables here. Is there anything in state law or the Louisiana Constitution regarding the purchase of a movable property by a political subdivision that talks about additional analysis of appraisals or additional, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, I've just never heard of this additional type of analysis necessary on the appraisals.
What it says is that we must offer fair market value. And so what we have is what it appears to be an appraisal for more than fair market value. So what Councilman Morrell was asking was for an analysis.
That is,
I'm assuming.
no, that is not correct. So here's the
Okay.
deal. If you use that logic, then you could have an appraisal from a public entity completely lowball an appraisal. And then the second appraisal come in, and then there'd be a question of fair market value. From my perspective, if you have a properly licensed appraisal who shows the receipts on why its appraisal is correct, and there is a deviation, the body that is going to appropriate the property, as long as the appraisal is defensible, we are the ones tasked with being responsible which appraisal we choose. There is no requirement that because there were two appraisals, we got to go pick one in the middle. That's not really something that's in the Constitution.
Hi, if I can just comment, there is an attorney general opinion, and I believe we sent it to Mr. Walker, who took issue with different factual scenarios. But in that opinion, the attorney from the Attorney General's office, it stated, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, that if there are two appraisals, that you can meet them. And
You can, but you
You
don't.
can, but it's not required.
Right.
well, neither is it required to accept the highest value.
Denisha, where can I find the statute on fair market value? Because I can't seem to find it.
Well, I'll send it to you.
Because
again.
the only thing that I see in pulling up the statute, which is, and I'm not the legal person, but it's RS 33 colon 4712.10. And it's on the purchase of a movable property by political subdivisions, appraisal required. And it says that no political subdivision shall purchase a movable property with a value greater than $3,000 unless prior to such purchase, a property has been appraised by a qualified appraiser. There's nowhere in here that it says anything about fair market value. And so please send me the appropriate statute where you found that.
And just to be clear, so we're all on the same page. An attorney general's opinion is guiding in lieu of case law litigation. If we give an appraisal that is not fair market as determined by the, I guess, by your interpretation of the attorney general opinion, then someone would have to sue us and say that we did something incorrect. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And let me ask a question. Is there any interested party withstanding right now that is opposing this process? No,
Current-
Sugar has enough standing. So just to clear that up legally,
Currently opposing,
currently opposing.
not that I'm aware.
Has anyone sent a letter to your office, to the administration, to Sheer Garner, to Mr. Baker, saying that we challenge that you are not a qualified Louisiana appraiser and that your appraisals, if they deviate from Mr. Thorne's, are not fair market value?
The city attorney's office has not received one.
Okay.
To my knowledge, and the administration, I can't speak for Cher or Baker.
Okay, then I guess my question is this. Just because you have two appraisals does not mean the lower one is automatically fair market value. And I guess that is where, when I stopped you earlier, that is where I think we have a conflict in that just because there's a lower appraisal doesn't automatically make that appraisal the fair market value. It just makes it another appraisal. And as long as both appraisers have the receipts and both appraisers are Louisiana qualified and meet the requirements in the statute, we as the purchaser have the determination of which one we'd like to choose to go with. Now, there is always the chance that there is some third party out there who we don't know, who some nefarious third party who is a good government watchdog group might hire Sheer Garner to sue us over it and say that the amount's too high. But that will require someone to take an action for that not to happen, for us not to go with that first appraisal, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
May we speak?
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay. We want to name that as this conversation is surfacing now. This is the same conversation that we had to have nearly a year ago when the first appraiser was hired. And so as a result of that, it became very important for us to know and understand these moving parts so that we would not be speaking about them off the top of our heads. I want to go on record as saying that it is true that there is an expectation, as Vice President Helena Moreno said, but that expectation by the law is only if a municipality is paying more than $3,000, which they are. It only indicates that it's requiring a qualified appraiser. When it comes to the idea of fair market value, because this was drilled into our heads by you all, you made it very clear that fair market value means a price at which the property would change hands between a willing buyer and a willing seller. So we felt compelled to make sure that we understood that ourselves. We also understood that when it came to the Attorney General's opinion, it was also named that the municipality had the opportunity, if it chose, to go with the highest appraisal of the two. I also want to take you back to November 15th, 2022, because this had been drilled into our heads so much so that we asked follow-up questions for our own clarity. And the response that we received from the administration is in two parts, and I quote, "In all candor," thank you for this, CAO Montano, "I share the frustration and the complexity that this has continued to evolve. Not to negate the dynamics that we have to go through, but one of the things that I can say transparently is that this administration and the council are working ardently to try to solve this. There is, and I quote, no malintention or ill intention to try to save money or to try to delay or antagonize unintentionally. Truly, working with the members of the council, we are on the same page. If we could get this done tomorrow, there will be no doubt in my mind that we would. We are trying to get there legally. So when we asked what the legal expectation was, and I quote, "The legal process is hiring the expert necessary to provide us that fair market determination via the appraisal. That is what we need, an appraisal. And that we have to abide by." It was said, and I quote, "To provide the highest amount that we can to every resident that is legally defensible, and that is what I stand behind. The highest amount possible that is legally defensible as it relates to the outright purchase of the property. And what we need to do that is an appraisal by a Louisiana licensed appraiser. You have that. We also want to name that we understand, and the community understands, that this process is not going to bear justice for them. They have been clear about this from the beginning. The only thing that they have asked is that they not be discriminated against in this process. But because of the expectation of your law requiring the appraisal, that means that that methodology has to be applied to determine what people are rightfully due. And so the appraisal has bared that result. So with that being said, we want to move this process forward because there's one appraiser, one Louisiana licensed appraiser, and everyone else in this room said they're not qualified to speak on this issue. So if you're not qualified to speak on this issue, you're also not qualified to continue making personal judgments to hold this process back. We are asking that if there's only concern with one, that you take a deeper look yourselves, not only as the council, but as the administration, to know that the same methodology is applied. And so if it is applied and your appraisal requires that it look at the land plot, look at the square footage, that it look at what has been contributed in terms of that property, then that's what it is. There's no expectation that these numbers are all going to be the same. But we also understand that we have no trust in a process that has delayed this over and over and over again, when we have already provided everything that's been asked. The appraiser has provided what's been asked, and this reads as a delay tactic. It reads as unjust. It reads as problematic. And if there was a problem, the problem should have been contended with when they were submitted on March 15th. We are ready to move this process forward, and we are asking and demanding that the city of New Orleans direct who's necessary to move this process forward.
So a couple notes real quick. Okay, so first, I know City Attorney Turner, you received the letter from myself and Councilmember Morrell. When we sent you in writing that we wanted you to move forward with the appraisal numbers of Mr. Baker, that was sent March 29th. And talking with Mr. Montano, we would like to, all proceed moving forward with the appraisals. But tell me about this, Mr. Montano, if you could, about before you can sign off on something, there has to be a form signed about form and legality. Explain to me
Sure.
this concept.
Sure. So on the administrative side, and Denise and I have had this conversation because it's throughout any contract, CEA agreement that the administration, the city goes into. Law has to sign off on form and legality. Law won't sign off on form and legality if it is not under the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Denisha, what they feel is legally defensible under that realm. So what I was telling Councilmember Moreno is that there can be no movement of any kind of signature contract above unless law has signed off on it. And that's before it gets to any kind of process in the realm. And so until law feels like they are justifiable, and correct me, I don't want to speak for you, Denisha, to defend the city and protect the city in their realm, it doesn't even get to me. It doesn't even get to the next level until law signs in the form and legality.
And usually for form and legality, that's for contracts. But in this instance, like we did move forward with some offer letters. They were accepted. We're trying to move to closing. So on those particular ones, the mayor signed off on those, and she can also give Gilbert the authority to sign on her behalf. So that's a matter of we have offer and acceptance contract to go forward with the closing. So it's first we have to come up with a number, and I think Gilbert is saying that whatever the legal number is that's defensible, once we offer that, it's accepted, then we move forward with the closing.
Well, I think Mr. Montano can speak for himself. I think he's looking at the law, but also, I mean, I don't know if he's got the same position as myself as Councilmember Morrell, where we believe that the fact that we have the appraisals on all the properties, those are all legally defensible numbers. And so I'm not sure if that's what he's speaking of as well. I'm hoping that that's where he's at so we can move this thing forward.
So I'm speaking right on behalf of the administration, not necessarily just purely myself. I think everybody wants to see this finalized. The mayor, all of us want this to be concluded and everybody to keep moving forward. We do support moving forward with the closing and the offer letters, but also have to be deferential for law to make sure and say, you're not going to get sued or challenged and create this more of an issue.
Right.
So if that's the case for all of them, except the few that you need the right justification and analysis to have, I think that is how I have been guided by city attorney to support.
And I agree with Gilbert, and I didn't want to also say that this is not a stall tactic. We've already sent out offer letters. We are already trying to close on some properties. And so again, what was told to Share Garner is where we have those appraisals where it's concrete, just like Gilbert is saying, and we won't have absolutely any challenges. We've told them to go out and push out those appraisals. I can't tell you how many that is, but we did give Share Garner that directive. So we are moving closer to scheduling even more closings.
We have a couple of things we need to name. What's clear is that people continue to say that they want to ensure that the law is being followed. And every step of the way, the law has been followed. And so if each time the law is followed, there's an opportunity for us to move forward. And I see Ms. Turner, and I thank you, Ms. Turner, for naming that all of those appraisals that do not have questions, that the offer letters can go forward for them. But when it comes to this idea, which is someone's personal opinion about what they think about, and I heard one appraisal, and I'm hearing the word few come up, the trust is not here because we don't know what that means. We heard that there is one appraisal that you have a question with, and one means one. So if we're trying to understand what's happening with that one, we have not heard any real clarity about what's the problem with that one. We're hearing that all of the rest of them can go forward. And we heard in the last meeting that we were in that they were going to go forward. And we heard in the meeting before that that they were going to go forward. So we have not heard what the problem is connected to the law, and that's highly problematic. We want this process to go forward for all of the residents. And for the ones that you have already declared, we still have not heard even a deadline by which they can be sent out, because if we are hearing you clearly that they can go forward, there should be no reason for an extended time in terms of turnaround. There is nothing that's been said today that makes it clear that anything has not been attended to with the law. The
Mr.
only
Walker.
thing that was said was needed was an appraisal by a Louisiana certified licensed appraiser, and you have that. And I also want to just go on record as saying that once again, whatever the amount is for any of the residents is still not justice for them. So nobody is seeking justice through this process. They are seeking the fairness that you said was according to the law. And we still don't trust that. The only thing we can trust is that we've been in here an entire year hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And we were hearing that the appraisal was necessary according to the law. That's where we are. And everybody who's sharing their opinion has already said that they are not qualified to be questioning these appraisals.
Mr. Walker, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just going to state what I've said last week and to kind of clarify where my client is on this. There is only one qualified competent appraisal before the city. There can be no comparison between a qualified appraisal and an unqualified appraisal. On October 30th, 2022, ARC delivered an opinion letter to Tulane, which was delivered to this council. Some of the highlights: Mr. Thorne utilized only one approach, not three. Mr. Baker utilized three approaches. He considered over 24 transactions. Mr. Thorne considered only three. Thorne may have claimed he developed a cost approach, but he did not. He merely put a cost table in on a sparse 13-page appraisal. He did not develop any land value. He did not develop any income approach. Therefore, the scrutiny suggested in the 15-year-old Attorney General's opinion would throw Mr. Thorne's appraisal out, leaving only one credible, qualified appraiser and appraisal before this city. 334712.10 is very clear, plain and unambiguous. You do not have to scrutinize, take the lower or higher value. You don't have to barter between the two. You as a public body can pick a number and take it and be legally shielded from any negative arbitrage. Now that's been our opinion. And I want to go further and say this. On December 15th, 2021, Tulane, at its own expense, delivered a report. They determined the land value at $293.43 per square foot. Mr. Baker's value is 35% below Tulane's. They are, in fact, 38% predictively above Mr. Thorne's. But if you only have one credible appraisal before you, then legal analysis on a value, which according to the, if you read the Attorney General opinion, and I did the research, maybe Sheer Garner, they're much smarter than me. Maybe they could find a case, but I found no case even citing 334712.10 in Louisiana. The Attorney General's opinion cites law from Iowa, Florida, and Connecticut. No judge in CDC is going to put any weight to this opinion, but one of the quotes is appraisal is not an exact science, but a subjective exercise of professional judgment by qualified and skilled individuals who may reasonably disagree. If you have a certified appraisal and someone disagrees with it, it's not a legal issue. They just don't like the number.
You have anything else? I mean, go ahead.
I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
What we have before us is not a legal conundrum. It's that we have a consultant who doesn't like the different numbers. That's it. And like I said, we know from both Mr. Thorne's frustration and Mr. Baker's evaluations, he was given more access to properties and did a more thorough appraisal. Therefore, the numbers were going to be different. There is plenty on the record that is defensible that the reason why Mr. Baker's numbers are different is because rather than simply look on the exterior of houses, my understanding is Mr. Baker was given as much access as he wanted to see all of the improvements throughout a house to give a more well-rounded appraisal. I think that if there is plenty on the record that is defensible to say that Mr. Baker's appraisal in this instance is the superior of two appraisals. If we're heckling over the money, and I guess this is, as an attorney, I'll say this, I always find it interesting when people get defensive with other people's money. We're the client, we want to be done with this. And if we're the client and you're our attorney and we're telling you, please figure out a legal way for us to be done with this, it calls to question, why do we have a consultant who is always making up a new reason why we can't resolve it?
We would like to say that Jimmy Thorns has been appraising property in Orleans Parish for probably 30 or 40 years. He is qualified, excuse me one second. He has been qualified as an expert witnesses in courts in Louisiana State Court and I believe in federal court. So he has been recognized by our courts as an expert appraiser of properties, especially in Orleans Parish.
Well,
So if
to give clarification, as I said, I don't think we knew from back when Mr. Thorne was here, very frustrated, he did not have as much access as Mr. Baker did. I'm not saying, and I'm being candid, I'm not saying Mr. Thorne is a bad appraiser. What I'm saying is that there was a level of distrust and conflict. And when Mr. Baker came on board, he was able to do more thorough evaluations and give a number. As far as throwing shade on Mr. Thorne, I did not do that. You just did.
Yes.
To be clear, I did not say anything bad about Mr. Thorne. I said that Mr. Baker had greater access, so he was able to give more comprehensive appraisals.
Well,
That's what I said.
His more comprehensive appraisals appear to consist of a lot of internet information and not necessarily information that is germane and pertinent to the properties that he appraised. For
Are you a
instance,
certified appraisal,
Excuse-
Ms. Fishman? Are you a
excuse me.
certified appraiser?
excuse me,
If you're not, then your opinion is
Mr.
as good as
Miss
mine.
Miss Turner,
excuse me.
I'm sorry. I think at this point, you should probably weigh in because at this point, we're now arguing over whose appraisal is the better appraiser. That's
Yeah,
not
we're done.
productive right now.
And I don't think. I forgot his name.
I just want to
Either
say
one
that
or appraisal
Hang on, Angela.
or appraisers, but I think what Debbie was doing and Mr. Baker's attorney They were both defending that particular appraisal's approach. That's all. I don't think they were.
I understand, but the thing is that Sheer Gardner doesn't get to pick which appraisal we go with.
I'll
Am I incorrect? This was just to put it on the table.
No.
You are our attorney, not Sheer Gardner. Who picks the appraisal?
I would venture to say that Sheer is the city's attorney as well. And that we need to, it's not about the appraisal is again, and no one wants to hear it. It's just about what's the legal amount, what's legally we can present for the property.
And I would say on the record, one person was hired by Sheer Gardner, which is Mr. Thorne, and one person was hired at the behest of everyone up here, which was Mr. Baker. The ultimate person who determines which of the two appraisals lead is the city attorney's office. I understand that they are giving advice, but they are not our attorneys. They're a consultant, just like Mr. Baker is. You are our legal department. You have to call the balls and strikes. So if the city attorney's office,
Something else.
the city attorney's office has decided they don't want to go with Mr. Baker, just say it, own it. But we can't keep coming to these meetings and doing this over and over
Hang
again.
on, let me ask,
And
let me
I
ask,
get
hang
exactly
on,
what
let me
you're
ask a more
saying.
clarifying question. So you know where myself and Councilmember Morel are on this. And you know, a lot of it's being put on you, but what is the mayor's position on this? Where is she okay with going with the higher appraisals?
I did not ask the mayor a specific question regarding a higher appraisal. I'm sure the mayor just wants us to do whatever is legal. The mayor as well would like to put this behind her, just as you all are. She tells us that consistently, but we did not ask the mayor her specific opinion regarding a higher appraisal.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, I think that it would be important to understand the mayor's position on this, on whether or not she thinks we should go with a higher appraisal and then come back to you, her attorney, to make it defensible. Because at the end of the day, we see that happen all the time
I'm
with so
sorry.
many different
One
issues.
clarification, the city attorney is our attorney, not the mayor's attorney.
She's actually both of our attorneys.
Right, so I'm saying, so your other client, please speak to your other client. There you go. That's all to clarify.
Because what I'm saying is if both of your clients are saying the same thing, then it's your job to make that defensible. We see so many things happen in City Hall, which we, the council, see are certainly not legal, yet somehow the law department is finding a way to make defensible. But all of a sudden, you know,
Since
with
put that out there, I would have to say, since I've been city attorney, I don't know what has come before me that I've made defensible something that was illegal, legal. Now, with that aside, if we want to move forward with sending the appraisals out for the ones there is no dispute over, we can send in offer letters out. We can certainly do that so as to not hold up the process even further while we're looking into the.
but who's disputing it?
That's the point. We don't,
Saying, who's disputing it?
Those aren't in dispute is what I'm.
No, I
Wait,
know,
but
but
who's the one disputing the appraisals? That's my question. You're saying that there are appraisals that in the law office are in dispute.
if neither.
Who is disputing?
Hands.
Am I correct to understand that the ones that are in dispute are the two highest appraisals? Are those the two, right?
Yes.
And
Okay.
so who doesn't like them?
The two that are
Right.
the highest.
Right, but who doesn't like them?
But who is the person
It's
in,
not us and it's not the mayor.
I mean, Mr. Montano's up here. He hasn't expressed that he's disputing appraisals. Who is disputing the appraisals?
We are not disputing the appraisals. What we would like to know is what it appears to us is that is not the fair market value for that property because we have an additional appraisal for that piece.
the
of property.
appraiser determines
What
that.
we were going to do is, as you suggested, was look at the analysis. I have not looked at that analysis yet. Sheer does have it, I believe. I don't want to speak for her. And if they have it, we'll take a look at it. That is all we're saying.
And to be clear, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, Sheer is to give you their opinion.
Right,
However, the law department ultimately makes the decision.
yes,
Okay,
I
want to be
agree.
clear. Thank you.
I have
Very
a request from the residents for resolve. So since it's already been named that there's only problems with one of the appraisals. Okay, now it's two. I'm gonna just relay this message. The appraisals are gonna be sent out. I heard they can be sent out today. If they can be sent out today, the offer letters, excuse me, then that means that whatever discussion has to be had about whatever report that people have or analysis, they can read that while they're being printed out, so that 100% of these offer letters can go out to the residents. We need to know the actual moment by which, because residents are prepared to wait here and get their offer letters now. So we're prepared to wait. The draft letter has already been provided to the community, so they know what it looks like. It only requires the number to be dropped in, the name of the person to be dropped in. The residents are prepared to wait here patiently and not too long, because they would like to get their offer letters and then exit the room. So we're prepared to wait.
What's the latest on the offer letters?
Well, when we are directed to send an offer letter for only the ARC appraisal, but it is 5:10, they're not going to go out tonight.
We're not concerned about the time as residents of Garden Plaza.
Hang on, Miss Ladwina. She
We-
says she can't get them out tonight. When can you get them out? Can you get them out in the morning? Hang on, Miss
I
Ladwina.
don't think I can get listen, I have to proof all of these. I can't say, yes, we're going to get them out by a particular time, but I believe we can get them mailed tomorrow.
Hold on. Let me just say this. 3 meetings ago, we were told that appraisals would be sent out. They were not sent out until a handful of them went into the mail just within the last few days, after we were upstairs demanding them in person. So we don't trust people saying that they're gonna send out shit. We need them now, and we'll wait here until they come. The residents of Gordon Plaza have waited 42 years. We sat through a whole presentation in here, watching the city attorneys that are hired by the city of New Orleans talk about a job that they can't even do, because private law firms are getting paid these big contracts to distract business the city attorney should be able to do. Somebody needs to go to their computer now and hit print. We're gonna wait here until they come.
All right, Angela, while Ms. Fishman figures out how we can get this done ASAP, like now, when you need to get
It's
someone
not
in your
gonna
office
happen
moving.
tonight.
All right. Okay, we'll figure out how we can get this done now. And Angela, in the
When
meantime,
it's quiet in the chambers, I'll be glad to respond.
hang on.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm trying to be as upfront as I can be and taking into account realities of needing somebody to do the letters, check the letters, proof the letters. But get them mailed. Tomorrow, yes, I'm saying we can get them out tomorrow.
All right,
But tonight I can't do
Yeah.
it. I mean,
hang on. I know. What time tomorrow? Where can people,
well, what we can do is I can propose this because we've been sending them out certified. What we can do is,
hang on.
I mean, here's just some suggestions that I'm.
Okay, let's go through the suggestions.
Is we can type the letters, put them in envelopes, and we can drop them off to someplace here. And the
All right.
and the residents,
Thank,
and the residents can pick them up because that would
Thank you.
probably.
Yeah, we can.
yeah, let's do that.
You can have a city attorney or somebody sign, pick up your letter, sign for it.
Yep.
Thereby, someone pick up the letter, and that would probably be the easiest way for everyone to get their letter as quickly as possible. So If you guys could write the letters, put them in an envelope from the city attorney's office, you show up, you sign to say, I got my letter, you walk out with your letter.
And then what time can people expect to be here tomorrow to pick them up?
I would say, I would think sometime after 1, because just there are a lot of
What if we
letters.
set a hard time, said, say 3 o'clock?
3
Okay.
PM?
That way we'll have an opportunity, she'll have an opportunity to do her due diligence, get them to us. If going through the letters, if we find anything that's incorrect, inaccuracies, we can get those straightened out so that when people come, they can walk away with a document in their hand that they can read and
Perfect.
consider.
Thank you,
Okay?
Kevin. I appreciate
All right.
that. Kevin, can you be the point person? Do you mind?
Absolutely. I'm
Thank
happy
you,
to do
Kevin.
that.
Okay. Tomorrow, 3 PM, you will have your letter. Kevin right here is your point person in the city attorney's office right here. No, city attorney's office, 5th floor. 5th floor. Machina,
Two things.
Go ahead, Ms.
Machina.
Two things. For the community, if we're hearing 3 o'clock, is that acceptable to you? Come on.
You asked the question? 3, okay, they say 3 o'clock is fine.
I'll tell you what we can do also.
So the reason why Kevin suggested 3 is that the city attorney is going to go through each of the letters and they're sent from Shear to make sure they're all correct. The reason why he selected 3 is that if they're incorrect, it gives them time to correct it. Because what they don't want to happen is, let's say Shear get the letters here at 12:30. One of your letters is wrong. You drive all the way down here. They have to go retype the entire thing and correct it, and you have to wait. So the reason why they're saying 3 is at the end of the workday. City Hall's up until 5. So that'll give a 2-hour window for people to show up and pick up their letter. It's an effort to make sure the letters are all correct. Because if a letter is incorrect, we're all going to be right back here if there's 3 or 4 incorrect letters and the numbers don't match up.
Thank you, Councilman Morrell.
Can I just say quickly?
Yeah, go
Three
ahead,
things.
Machina.
3 things quickly. 1, will that be all residents? Okay, except for 2.
Except for 2.
The 2 have to know or they're gonna be up here.
I mean, what's the 2? Can we know?
I think that we should be able during this meeting to figure out what those 2 are. There's 2 properties that were highlighted, that the numbers that were flagged as having a complete differential. We'll let y'all know which 2 properties that is. We're still working to resolve those 2. We're just not making everyone wait till those 2 are resolved.
Okay, and just 2 more things, and I'm gonna put them together. I do want to make note that when I had my first appraisal, it was done within 24 hours. It was emailed another 24 hours, and I received certified mail, my appraisal and offer letter 2 to 3 days after.
That was Mr. Thorne?
That was Mr. Dorrance from Shea Gardner.
Okay.
And I just want to make note, what's the accountability if this is not done?
Y'all gonna feel the accountability at 3 o'clock.
Listen, guys, we shouldn't have a problem. We're gonna do our due diligence and make sure that we don't run into a problem.
You know,
okay?
you know why we're gonna receive this from you? Because the last time we came up here, we were told that the appraisals had been mailed. They had not been, and you came out. Is this, I'm verifying, he came out, right? You came out, and then everybody need to hear, you came out and you printed the very thing we were just told 5 minutes before could not be done. So we're going to hold you to your word and come here. What we are demanding from the city of New Orleans is whatever needs to be worked out about these mysterious 2, that they get worked out before we get here at 3 o'clock. Because we are at a place now where this entire experience, there's stuff we were supposed to be in here handling with Mr. Threat, we can't even get to because we're in here talking about this part, which should have been done after those appraisals were submitted on the 15th. So we'll be here at 3 o'clock. And we'll be looking for everything to be done right. Since people say they need more time to do it right, we'll look for them to be right at 3 o'clock tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Angela, let's.
It's also I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is also very important to know that the residents have said many times over that an offer letter is only an offer letter if it is honoring the appraisal amount. So ain't nobody fooled by getting no offer letter that ends up cheating people by the time the shit gets printed out. Everybody is clear about their appraisal number and what this means according to the law. So we know what printing it out and getting it right means.
All right, thank you, Angela. Angela, let's talk to Mr. Threat about the issues with Mr. Threat dealing with the rental
Can you speak
assistance.
into them? Yes.
Okay. Kevin.
There's a question about where we want them to meet. Will the council chambers be open and available at 3 tomorrow or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could probably utilize it if nobody's here.
Can we just make that time tomorrow, our next Gordon Plaza Task Force meeting? Let's just do it tomorrow so we can pick up the pieces and we have several other pieces of business to handle.
All right, Chambers not available tomorrow. So Kevin, why don't they go to the 5th floor and meet you in the 5th floor, okay? All right, he just smiled at me.
Kevin,
I'm smiling, but I don't know that we can accommodate a barrage of people at one time. We do want people to be comfortable. So if there's another place.
Why can't we meet at the front of City Hall in the foyer where the piano is? You could have a person stand
Yeah,
with
there
a
you go.
desk and they could come in and go out.
yeah, I'm sorry, wait a minute. I want to just name that one of the things that we have been committed to is not adding unnecessary suffering mentally, emotionally, or physically to the residents of Gordon Plaza. You know good and goddamn well, if this was a community in the Garden District, y'all wouldn't have them out in the foyer area signing off on offer letters. So we need some help here with a location that honors the residents so they can have a place to sit down and wait. We know how to wait patiently when something's moving forward. So we need a location where the residents can come and sit and not have to deal with passerbys in the middle of the foyer area. So can we choose another place, please?
What was the ruling on whether chambers will be available? It's not available? Okay.
The 8th floor conference room?
8th floor conference. That's pretty large.
Yeah.
It's available, use it.
All
Okay.
right, 8th floor
8th floor
conference
conference.
room. 3 o'clock.
It's comfortable.
Is
I
that
think
the name,
it's
is
just
that the
a
name of
conference room.
the eighth floor?
Conference room.
I think there's only one conference room on the 8th floor, so.
Yeah.
Okay, after the residents of Gordon Plaza get their offer letters, clearly they are going to be in a position to review them to make a determination about whether or not they want to accept them. And that's gonna be dependent on if the number is right. So we also want to just name that we would like to establish the next Gordon Plaza Task Force meeting. So not only can we push forward with whatever the residents are going to do, but ensure we tie up the loose ends for the entire process because there's still a few things that need to be named. And we just want to make sure we were under the impression that 2 meetings ago, we'd be able just to do a play-by-play walkthrough of this process because there's been a few pieces that have been tightened up, but still a few pieces that need to be. And that's important in order for people to feel peaceful. So when can we do the next meeting? The sooner the better, please.
Hang on 1 second while we go through the calendar, okay?
The residents are asking if you have any opening on Friday.
And rental and all the other loose ends. You can't do. Okay, Friday's not gonna work. We can do it on the 17th. Are you available, Jason? You can do it. What time on the 17th
4
work?
p.m.
4 PM?
If that day works, then we have an additional request.
Oh, it's not gonna work for Mr. Montano.
Okay, what are dates that work for you, Mr. Montano?
Well, it's that time that doesn't work.
When is it? The 18th? What about the 18th? What about, you can do the 19th, maybe? And the afternoon?
I can do this. I can do.
Mr. Hill, I'm sorry, before you walk out, there's gonna be a piece of information here. This is the request that we have, Mr. Montano. Because the offer letters are gonna be printed for people to pick them up tomorrow, we are requesting that the 30-day deadline that you all have attached to that not begin until after the next Gordon Plaza Task Force meeting. So whatever date you pick, we'd like that window to begin
What was-
after that date.
Can Joe Threat sit in for you?
That's fine.
On the 7th, we're going too far down the calendar now. On the 17th, do you all mind if Mr. Threat, who's already gonna be here, sits in for Mr. Montano?
How do you feel about that, Mr. Threat? You feel, all right, because you know,
He's handling all of the issues anyway, and
I just wanted to, listen, I believe in the power of collective understanding so that people can do what they need to. So thank you for that.
yep. So let's do on the 17th at 4 o'clock, because if not, it was gonna go like down a couple
So
weeks.
then we'd like to ask that no 30-day window begin before the 17th.
Yes.
Yes,
Hang on one second.
yes. Okay,
Hey, real quick, Angela and team, I think it's important to mention the rental assistance piece. I'm sorry, you're listening to somebody else.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The thing-
Pierre. Are you ready? Okay, I think it's important to mention the rental assistance piece
Yeah.
today. I
can you
don't
just
want to,
confirm, there are some people, can you confirm the date and time one more time?
it's on the 17th at 4 o'clock, a week from today.
Yes.
I want to talk about the rental assistance piece because I don't want people to be shocked by news coming down the pipeline. And Councilmember Morel has some information and it's things that we need to resolve. So I just wanted to start laying the groundwork on this. Councilmember Morel.
Thank you. So we had a draft CEA, which everyone has seen regarding the rental assistance piece. We were notified Thursday of last week that the city attorney had a problem with the rental assistance piece as it pertained to homeowners. The challenge that has arisen, and we're trying to work through it, well, I'm trying to work through it, is when we contemplate the original homeowner rental piece, there was a tremendous delta between when rental assistance would kick in and when the offers would be accepted.
Mhm.
Because we've streamlined the offer process where people are going to have the cash in their pocket, what has arisen is that there's a gratuitous donation challenge now. Because once it's one thing when there's a drawn out process towards a settlement and getting a check and providing rental assistance in that interim. But once a homeowner receives the check for final payment, getting rental assistance on top of that runs afoul of gratuitous donation. Now, the issue is not for renters. Renters, since they are not getting a check as part of a settlement for their property, renters can have access to rental assistance because they're not getting paid twice. We're trying to work through it to see what other options are there, but it is a hiccup that was brought to my attention on Thursday. And I've been working since Thursday to try to resolve it. That is
Okay,
the-
so, thank you for naming that. And, I think it's really important, though, we understand that we're not talking about the relocation costs that are going directly.
No, it's separate. That's
Pockets.
what we're talking about. The relocation is separate from rental assistance.
Right.
Rental assistance is when the city pays the rent for someone because they're displaced from where they're living.
Yeah.
The challenge arises, legally speaking, when you get the check from the city saying this is the final settlement, we own your house, you now have the check. Once that transaction has taken place, rent on top of that from the city attorney's position runs gratuitous donation because you're getting two sums of money beyond for housing.
what we'd like to do before residents come here tomorrow to get their offer letters is we'd like to resurface for you some information that was exchanged during the time when your chief of staffs were changing
Right.
for you to examine before we conclude that at the next meeting. And if you wouldn't mind coming back to that next meeting, just so by then you'd have an opportunity to look that over and we could talk through that, because I think that that can be resolved. We
I think what
understand.
might be better is that if we can have a meeting with Gordon Plaza leadership
Mhm.
before the meeting next week, where give me the information, we will visit and I'll get the argument to make the argument with the
Before
city
the
attorney
meeting.
before that
That's great.
meeting.
That's
And that way we can try and get some resolution on it.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. We will see you all again on Monday. Thank you for all of you for attending. Mr. Threat, you'll be taking over for Mr. Montano next week. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Montano. Appreciate it.
Thank you.